Okay, we're recording again. Yeah, when I created the first part, the introduction, it just the light bulb went off. It's like you're going to just want this for the introduction. It's about 8 or 9 minutes. And then when you're going to do a deeper dive, let's do that more formally. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen. And here we are. So we covered the table of contents, which you see the tail end of there. And the introduction, I think this stuff is important enough to cover. So I'm talking here about the open source movement, which is open source software specifically, which I've covered for quite some time. I've been interested in, I covered it as a professional journalist and technical writer. And I've also been writing about it on my website, which we can talk more about. So if I go to the blog, for example, it says here, initial thoughts on ChatGPT from a longtime writing professor and tech journalist. And it provides additional background here relating to open source. And Linus Torvalds, if any of you have heard of Linux, he is the founder of that. So there's a lot of, I imagine there's going to be some questions related to this, but it's important to understand many of these concepts, the idea of open source, and I'm self-publishing here with the blog, and we can talk about self-publishing and those kinds of things. And that's the whole idea behind the book, is to get us talking about these many things that affect the world of journalism and publishing and writing, and those kinds of things. So here's where I talk about Linus Torvalds and Unix and something called Linux. And if you're not familiar with that, that's fine. Just sort of laying things out. I've also been a big supporter of Wikipedia and Wikimedia Commons, which we will talk more about. I am the founding editor of the August Wilson Journal, which I can show you right here. It is published by the University of Pittsburgh, and here's the current, let's see, table of contents is there, and the archives go back. I've since handed the project off to another set of editors. I put about 6 or 7 years of work into it, which followed, I've been an August Wilson scholar for 30 years. So we'll talk more about August Wilson too, if you're interested in that. We're just getting things rolling. It's background on me is what I'm trying to deliver. So open educational resource, the Associated Press, which we'll talk about, I have a link here, so let's go ahead and click on it. Here's the AP. You may, and if you haven't, you may have seen Associated Press stories. They're all over the place in the media, and it typically says AP. So now that that's coming to the top of your brain, when you read an article online, often you can see Associated Press at the beginning of it, or you'll see this logo. And here's their website. And what they are is a service where they have a whole bunch of reporters worldwide who generate news. And then, if you subscribe to the service, they deliver images and they deliver the news stories. So often you'll see an AP story that runs in multiple newspapers. So Philadelphia Inquirer, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Chicago Sun-Times, right? All across the country, you'll see these AP stories popping up. So that's that. We're going to talk about the 5 W's and the H, the inverted pyramid, storytelling, libel, various forms of journalistic writing, which we will try our hand at in class through in-class assignments. Now, as part of that, we also have the Keystone newspaper on this campus, and I'm the advisor to that organization. We welcome and encourage student contributions. So if any of these assignments, when you're working on, now, we're probably not going to do an obituary, right? But a hard news story, sure. Maybe a sports story or an opinion, a review of some kind, that we can take in that direction. I strongly encourage you to do that, but most of the work will be in class and be exercises in the class. I've experimented with having everybody go into the world and find a news story on campus, and it usually works out okay, but it's a lot of work, and there's quite a bit of agony where students are having trouble coming up with a news story, and I spend a lot of time coaching them through it, and I'm ready to do more in-class work with the option of going to the Keystone. Okay, so what else do we have here? I hope you enjoy the handbook and all of that. So this is available, again, for you to review. It is under content on D2L, and it says like journalism handbook. I think I can just show you, right? So there's 2 sections of journalism, so the banner is going to be different here. This is for the 010 section, and this is for the 02 section, 020 section. So I go back here, I go to content, and you'll see the journalism handbook is right here. So that's what all this is. And I will continue to make videos related to taking you through D2L and what that's all about, but one step at a time. We're looking at the handbook here. So it starts with format. Format is very important in the world of journalism. It provides consistency for written material submitted for publication throughout the organization. Typically, you use Microsoft Word. Increasingly, there's a use of Google Docs, which is fine, although I always say that Word is more feature rich. So if I'm you and I'm a professional writing major, specifically if I'm a professional writing major, don't just dismiss Word and say, I'm just going to use Google Doc. I mean, you can, but I mean, I've been teaching both for a while now, and students run into limitations with Google Docs and they become frustrated with it. And I go, okay, did you open it in Word? And they'll say, no, but I will. So realize that, Microsoft Word is still the 800-pound gorilla worldwide, meaning the big beast. And deservedly so, I think, because of all the features that it offers. Okay, talking about format requirements then, when you go into a publishing house or you're going to be a writer somewhere, there's a certain style and there's certain requirements in terms of naming your documents, submitting them to a shared folder for people in production to pick up and put into publication, either in print or certainly online. Other format concerns. So I teach this: include the following at the top left of the page, but not in the header. Not in the header. Lots of students want to put it in the header. You know the difference, right? Show you in Word, new document here. Okay, so this is where you would put name or whatever. All right, let me bounce back here for a moment. Here's what this is journalism. Here's what I encourage you to do. Go ahead and copy this information and paste it. Control V does it like that. Let's see if I can undo it and then get rid of that and then paste it in such a way as it, can I keep the text only? Yep. You see how I'm doing that there? Text only. That's what I want. And then your name will go here. So as we move deeper into the class, I'm going to want to see all of your documents, all of your in-class writing, and anything you may do for the Keystone, which we'll talk about, look like this. So you can copy and paste that information from the book right off the bat. The section for it would either be, or, oh, wait a minute, got that in my head wrong. This actually is subject to change, right? I go back and forth between being the academic and then being the business person on the Keystone end. The section, we used to have more specific sections in the Keystone, but we've kind of been doing away with those. Let me show you what that would be. It would be for sports. As you submit an article, headline, subhead for sports, the date, and the word count, all that information. All this information is super important, and we're talking about formatting right off the bat. And you see why I start with formatting. We're not even into the writing yet. You need to be able to name your files in a certain way and have this information at the top. There is often a slug, which I'm not going to go into right now. Let's just do this. Okay. I feel the clock ticking. One of the things that you should certainly pay attention to, and we're going to spend some time on, is there's a formula here. The headline plus the subhead equals the lead, and that can be deconstructed, meaning that the lead can be deconstructed to create the headline and the subhead. This is super important. Sometimes students are good at writing headlines and subheads, and then they say, what do I write for the lead? I just sort of said, yeah, you say it again. You'll see, it'll sink in, it'll make sense. Some students are good at writing leads. The lead is the first paragraph or two. The paragraphs are short in journalistic style writing. They write that lead and it's good. And they say, I don't know how to write the headline and subhead. Well, we extrapolate from that. I'll show you. It's typically, there's a headline, which is written in present tense and has verbs in it, nice strong verbs. The subhead adds a little bit more information, and then the lead adds additional information to that. So it builds, right? It goes from a briefer synopsis to a little bit more, to a little bit more, and then through the rest of the article, you'll see all of this. Date lines look like this. Kutztown, PA. I write here they should only be included when a reporter is actually working from that location. Otherwise, all of our articles would have a date line, and it just doesn't make sense. Newspapers have largely abandoned this. like if it's Philadelphia, you'd have Philadelphia for every single story in the Philadelphia Inquirer. It typically holds true when somebody is working remotely. We'll talk about the 30 mark here. And if you've never seen that, we'll talk about that more. And it goes on, right? Hitting the space bar once. If you're a person that hits the space bar twice, there's a way to remove them automatically. I can show you that. In-house style. Track changes and peer review. If you're not familiar with track changes function in Word, we'll spend some time on that. When I was a young writer, I sent my younger writer, right? I remember sending my material to an editor where I was actually hired. I mean, he had looked at some of my stuff because it had been published, but I was learning sort of a new area. And they said, okay, here's what we want you to do. Here's information on several things, stitch it together. And so I did that and I sent it out and it came back to me. It was all marked up in track changes. And this is, I don't know how many years ago, 30 years ago or something. And I had never seen that before. And I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Because it's all marked up. But once you start to clean it up, it's like, oh, okay, it's not so bad. Resolve, 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 missing word, extra space, whatever, So that's track changes. Naming files. So if your work is going to be in any kind of shared folder, what I teach is your last name, your first name, the assignment title, and then like some identifying factor. So for me in this class, it would be Downing, Michael, sports or sports story. And then the section or the time the class meets, we'll discuss that. We'll do that as a group. Okay, so here we got Downing, Michael, hard news, 3 p.m. I've got the underscores in there. We'll talk about that. Associated Press. And then it goes forward. So here are some excerpts from the AP style book. Now, I'm not allowed to take too many excerpts, but minimal, just to give an idea what's in the book. There are numbers here. Use figures for all numbers above 9. Spell out numbers under 10. So you spell everything out until you get to 9, and then it goes to this afterwards. 21 million instead of 21 and all these zeros. Money looks like this. Don't carry beyond 2 decimals. 22.52 would be the max. Fractions standing alone are spelled out. 1/4, 1/4, like this. Insert commas with 4 or more figures, except in dates. We'll talk about this moving forward. And, right, it gets detailed. Abbreviations here. State abbreviations are different than what you might think they are. These are not, you'll note, postal abbreviations. So we will use these in class. Pennsylvania is PA, capital P, small a, period. It is not capital P, capital A. New Jersey, you remove the periods and then you have the postal abbreviation. Look at California, right? CALIF. This is AP style. My belief is that this is going to fade over time. I mean, the internet sort of dictates style, but that said, the governing style of the internet is journalistic style. That is the predominant, it's not MLA, it's not APA. You can find MLA documents on the internet, of course. You can find APA documents on the internet, of course. But most of what you see is governed by journalistic style. So it's another reason to take this class, right? Punctuation, putting periods and commas inside quotation marks, inside, not outside, not after the quotation marks. Let's see if I can illustrate that, right? So here, fish. He said, catch the fish. I'll blow it up for you here so you can see it. The whole thing would be, my point is, commas in the United States, I'm sorry, periods in the United States go inside. In Great Britain, they go outside. You'll see on Wikipedia, they go outside. So Wikipedia has adopted a more global position on the period quote relationship, right? And I'm chuckling because it's all important, again, if you're looking to get a job in the area of publishing and editing, and we get a lot of students that come through that say they want to be editors and be involved in editing and publishing and writing and things like that, you need to know stuff like this. Okay, and here we go. I've got some examples. I saw the play, he said. He said, I saw the play. Different ways to use these quotes. Okay, on to writing and basic coverage. What page am I on? 11. I think I can go for a little bit more. The 5 W's in the H consist of who, what, when, where, why, and how. You may have bumped into these before. Here they are again. If you're wondering how to write a news story, that's what you do. They may vary in order, and you should also be aware of not just writing all of your stories like who, what, when, where, why, and how. So it's like mechanical. We'll talk about narrative, and the idea of narrative is to provide some context. Like there may be a day, let's say somebody gets hit by a car downtown Kutztown. So who is the person? What got hit by a car? When? Yesterday afternoon. Where? At the corner of Baldy and Main Street. Why starts to get a little bit murky there. Maybe they fell down. Maybe they had a heart attack. Maybe somebody was speeding. You leave that for the police to provide that information, and you will quote the police. Don't contrive that. Don't make that up. And then how? That's also for the police. You know, they will tell you through their investigation that so and so had stepped off the curb and then collapsed due to a stroke or something like that, or you know, maybe the knee or the ankle gave out something and fell, and you know there was a thing that happened. So all of that, you know, let the authorities deliver that information. Don't speculate. But my point is that there may be a dangerous intersection in town. So then it would be your job as a reporter to say that, you know, this is the third time in 6 months where there's been an incident at that particular intersection. So it goes beyond just the who, what, when, where, why, and how. It's been an ongoing thing. You see that? And this is the duty of a journalist. So 5 W's in the H. If you're making a poster for an event on campus, you want to include who, what, when, where, why, and how. The inverted pyramid then is critical to news writing. It assumes that the most important information comes at the beginning of a story, and the information decreases in importance as the story progresses. This stems from the old days when a story literally had to be cut with scissors from the bottom in order to allow that story to fit in the news hole in print. There would be right. The ads go onto a print page first, and then the stories wrap through with the columns, and there's only so much real estate there. So if a story is actually too long after it's printed out of the typesetting machine, which printed it out in long columns, it could be cut from the bottom. That's how it went. Okay, so today readers depend on the inverted pyramid to deliver their news in a certain way. The agreement is simple. Readers should be able to understand the key points to any story by reading the headline, the subhead, and the lead. I do this all the time. All day long, I read articles, and most of the time it's headline, subhead, lead. And if I'm interested, I'll go a little bit further, because you know you can't read every single article. You just have to get that much. So if we go back to our example of a gentleman who stepped off the curb and got hit by a car, you don't write that like a short story. You don't start by saying Chuck woke up in the morning and was having a good day. He made some breakfast for himself and had a cup of coffee. He grabbed his keys and his hat and his wallet and he headed out the door, right? And then, you know, he bumped into somebody else and he stopped and he got flowers for his wife or something like that because it was Valentine's Day. You see how I'm building all of this to the moment when he steps off the curb and somebody's going too fast and he gets hit. Just clipped. He's, you know, he's bruised, but he's okay. He got knocked down and people gathered around. They helped him up and he went to the doctors and he's got a bruise. And the person who was speeding has been cited by police. You know, all of that, you know, that waits to the end. In the inverted pyramid, you flip that and it's man hit by car. Driver was speeding, cited by police. And then you go into the lead. The man was crossing the street, flowers for his wife, when he got clipped by a car, driven by so-and-so, and all of that. So that's the idea behind the inverted pyramid moving forward. And here it is, the lead, and then the body, and then the tail at the end. And here's some information on the person that produced actually this image. And we'll talk about Wikimedia Commons, which is a place where you can go, if you have a blog and you want to publish information, you can take it there. Take it from that site. Okay, let me zoom out for a minute. Storytelling, headline, subheads, and leads. We actually talked about that. We talked about storytelling a little bit, providing contextualization. So let me end with libel then, and then we'll move on to the First Amendment in the next video. Okay, Libel then is a written statement that is false, that holds a person up to ridicule, hatred, or scorn, or damages a person's reputation through fault. What that means then, unpacked, is holds a person up to ridicule, hatred, or scorn. That's pretty clear. So let's say I don't like some guy at some business downtown in Kutztown, and let's say I saw him looking at my wife, so I don't like this guy, and I publish the local newspaper. So I start to contrive some things related to his business, how like there's mice and it's not clean and things like that. Well, he finds out, he starts to read this and he starts to persist. I mean, it can be murky at first, but if I cross a line and he has reason to believe that I have damaged that person's reputation and particularly ability to make a living through fault, and the fault would be the intention, I'm at fault. That's what that means. I had the intention to hurt this guy and I did, and I made stuff up. That's what libel is. Truth is the best defense. However, truth alone is not enough. If fault can be proven, a reporter can still be held liable. So what this means is if that person's business indeed was cited for mice by the health board, the health inspector, then that's true. So I can print that. But if I go farther than that and start making things up, then it can be a problem. Okay, I think I've covered all that. All right, so we're going to stop here right at the beginning of the First Amendment. So let me stop my share and stop recording. See you in the next video.